Still not stopping to talk.
The king of Rozvadov.
Yeah, he truly is the king of Rozvadov.
Hello. Today we're going to see Martin Kabrhel at his run for his third WSOP bracelet. He is a very polarizing person, but we're not going to comment on his table antics or speech play, and we're going to focus on his game. This is a 50k High Roller WSOP Europe with 30 entrants and 5 places paid. Our first hand starts with an open from hijack. He cannot be too wide here, he is covered by small blind and he would be in an awkward spot with many hands after 3 bets from players with very short stacks. Jack 9 is still okay, but it's on the bottom of this range. Small blinds should do a mix of everything and trap with some very strong hands like pocket jacks or queens. King 9 can be an okay candidate to 3-bet, but solver calls it most of the time. Chidwick finds aces and has a very easy decision here. Action goes back to Martin, who decided to isolate with a 4-bet. When we look at GTO here, we can see that Jack 9 suited should be just a fold, but to be fair, it's just 1 pip below, and Jack 10 is mostly calling in that spot, so it's not a disaster. He got lucky catching flush on the turn and knocked out his first victim on this final table. Next in line was Kristen Foxen. She pushed ace-5 off on the button, and we can see that it's a good jam. It's worth to notice that all other low offsuit aces prefer to raise fold in that spot. Unlucky for her, Kabrhel had jacks and made an easy call. Daniel Dvores met similar fate. He jammed pocket 3s on the button and it was standard play here. Same for Martin, who had pretty easy decision to make. After these 3 eliminations, he was the new chip leader, with one player with a very similar stack and bunch of short stacks, and that created very interesting ICM dynamics on the direct bubble. After a raise from an early position from another big stack, Martin decided to 3-bet his King 5 suited. Now we can look at solver ranges, and you have to agree that it looks pretty savage. The most common action is all-in 3-bet for 65 big blinds, with almost a quarter of range. Almost all aces want to jam here, and a lot of suited kings. King 5 suited is pure all-in here, but we can see that King 6 sometimes wants to raise with smaller sizing. To explain why this 3-betting strategy is so aggressive, we have to look at what happens after our jam. Early position players should fold everything except pocket aces. To understand this, we have to look at this in ICM scenario. These are the payouts for this tournament, and these are the stacks at the start of this hand. Low jack and cutoff have extreme bubble factors against each other, and almost no bubble factor against all other players. Bubble factor more than 3 means that the chips we can lose are more than 3 times more valuable than those we can win. Where does this number come from? Let's see ICM values of stacks in this hand. 65 bigs is worth a little bit more than second place, and it's around 355k. If this stack would double up, its value in the tournament would jump to only 464k. This number cannot exceed first place price, so becoming a huge chip leader here would earn us 109k euros in the long run. It's a nice number, but if we look at the other side of this coin, if we lose this hand, we go out empty-handed. So basically we risk lose 355k to win 109k. In-game we saw fold from player on early position, but we can see that offsuit aces are good candidates to 4-bet sometimes. Next hand we have another clash of 2 biggest stacks. We see a raise from the cutoff and a 3-bet from Martin on a small blind. Now you probably won't be as surprised, but we can see that he could go nuts here, going all in with more than a third of hands. Every king and every ace are good enough to rip for more than 50 big blinds here. It's the same idea. Cutoff needs so much more equity to make this a profitable call that he can do it only with 2 hands, kings and aces. And this is also an extreme example of how important blockers can be pre-flop. Having an ace or a king reduces the calling range of our opponent by 25%. In the last hand we had the most extreme situation where blocking an ace reduced the calling range by half, from 6 to 3 combos of aces only. Solver doesn't want to 3-bet small at all, for value it's only aces. It's just not a good scenario when we will have to play out of position with crappy range versus another big stack with strong range and position. Cutoff should call smaller 3-bet with 12% of best hands and 4-bet only with pocket aces mixed with some suited aces as a bluff. Flop isn't very good for small blind and he should check it most of the time. After a small bet, the cutoff should mostly call and jam with some hands, mainly the most vulnerable top pairs and over pairs. Jacks without a spade can jam here. Small raise on this SPR and structure is pretty weird, but it's what we saw and Martin has a great price to stick around, and we see that the solver agrees and calls hands like Queen 3 or 9-3. On the turn, Martin played a block bet for less than 10% of the pot. Solver wants to either jam or check, but once in a blue moon uses this sizing with hands like Queen 3, no spades, so this play isn't totally crazy. Against this bet, jacks without a spade should just jam. There are not many good rivers and if we're ahead, we want to put our stack at risk on the turn. Cutoff just called and after 5 of spades on the river, action went check-check. After this hand, Martin had a huge chip lead and smooth sailing for his third bracelet. Let me know in the comments what do you think about Kabrhel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and see you next time. Bye.